Commanders are hiring defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. Do you like Dan Quinn as the hire as head coach of the Commanders?
No.
Before we get to today's content, please be sure to like and subscribe. We're coming up on 800 subscribers. You are all freaking awesome, every single one of you. I work pretty hard on this content. Every subscriber means a ton to me. You guys are the best. If you like the content, please hit the subscribe button so we can help the channel grow and we can keep putting out some great, awesome content. Now that that is out of the way, the Commanders have selected their new head coach, the guy who I thought was going to be the Seahawks head coach, Dan Quinn.
Wrong-o.
And I'll be honest with you, I think he's going to excel in Washington.
Hell yeah!
I think that was probably the most attractive job. The Chargers job, pretty great because you've already got a quarterback there. Outside of that, I do think the Commanders was the best job in a lot of ways because as a new head coach coming in, you're going to be given a little bit of time to build something, and you've got high draft picks to do it with. Second overall pick. You're projected to have the most cap space in the NFL. That's a huge asset to have. I don't think there's any reason to think that this is a bad hire by Washington, to be honest with you. I think that Dan Quinn's been ready to be a head coach again. I was actually surprised when he didn't get a head coaching job after getting fired from the Falcons a couple years ago. I assumed a coach that took a team to a Super Bowl just a few years before then would be a very heavily coveted head coach. Maybe the right opportunity wasn't there. Maybe he wanted to redefine himself in Dallas as a defensive coordinator. Nothing wrong with that. He did a great job. Sports media does not agree with me. Sports media seems to be of the opinion that this was a bad hire. I love First Take and I love Stephen A. Smith. This might have been the dumbest take I've ever heard from him.
The last time we saw him was in a playoff game where the Dallas Cowboys defense looked horrific. But I would have much rather preferred Dan Quinn remaining as the defensive coordinator in Dallas to try and make amends for the horrific performance that they had put forth in the NFC wildcard playoff game against the Green Bay Packers.
So let me get this straight. Because Dan Quinn's last game went poorly for the Cowboys, we're supposed to forget about the 2 years before then leading up to that game, and Dan Quinn is supposed to put his career on pause and go, okay, I'll stay at the coordinator level even though I'm ready to be a head coach again, even though I'm ready for that next level. And I've been ready for that next level, to be honest with you. I'm supposed to hit pause because of one bad game. Got it. It was a bad time for that last game. It was one game, though. And by the way, the other piece of this that nobody seems to be talking about when it comes to that Cowboys-Packers game, do you realize how much of a distraction it might have been that Pete Carroll had just gotten fired? I know that sounds like I'm a Seahawks homer, but hear me out. Pete Carroll had just gotten fired a few days before that game, and sports media kept talking about Dan Quinn is going to Seattle. They kept talking about, hey, Dan Quinn, he makes the most sense to be the head coach of the Seahawks. Dan Quinn to the Seahawks, Dan Quinn to the Seahawks, Dan Quinn to the Seahawks. Don't you see how that could be a complete distraction to that defense and those players on defense? They could get totally wrapped up into that. And while you hope that's not what happened, while you hope that they're putting all their attention onto the field and onto the team they're about to play and everything else, don't you think that that might have been a little distracting to keep hearing that my defensive coordinator, the guy that I'm putting all this work in for, he's not going to be here next year? He's already in Seattle. He's already got one foot out the door. That's what you're thinking. Even if it's not true, even if Dan Quinn was fully committed and working his ass off, don't you think that maybe for the players, it kind of meant something that we might be losing Dan? I'm not saying that I know that that's what happened. I don't. I'm saying it is highly possible that that's what happened because that was an uncharacteristically poor defensive performance. Not to take anything away from Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur as an offensive mastermind. Not to take anything away from any of that, but that Cowboys defense, we hadn't seen it play that way. In my mind, there is no reason for Dan Quinn to halt his career because of one bad game. I don't care what that game was. Please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more content surrounding happenings of the NFL, the MLB, the NHL, the NBA, the NCAA, the ABCD, the NWA, sports world. Please subscribe.